Don't expect us to show up. Africa sounds more exciting than your wedding. That was the message I got from my own father 3 weeks before my big day. I had already booked first-class flights, paid for a luxury villa on the Amalfi Coast, and arranged every detail so my family could be there. But instead, they chose a luxury safari tour in Kenya. Over me. It was the moment I realized I could spend my whole life trying to please people who never saw me. And that's when everything changed, because I stopped choosing them and started choosing me. Have you ever been abandoned by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally? If this story touches something deep inside you, don't forget to hit that heart, leave a comment, and subscribe. You are not alone, and you deserve better. I grew up constantly overlooked in my family. My older brother was the golden child, athletic, obedient, the future doctor they always dreamed of. Me, I was the creative one, which was just their polite way of saying disappointment. I never fit the mold. I pursued fashion. I started my own brand. I hustled from scratch. And though I found success on my own terms, part of me always longed for validation from the people who never believed in me. When I got engaged to someone who supported every inch of who I was, I thought maybe, finally, they'd see me. So I planned the perfect destination wedding on the Amalfi Coast. An intimate celebration with a breathtaking view, hand-picked guests, and all expenses covered for my family. I spent $45,000 to make it happen. But even after all that, they still didn't come. They didn't even call to explain. Instead, they posted photos of wild lions and champagne toasts under the African sunset. That's how my wedding turned into a reckoning, one where I stopped begging for a seat at their table and built my own. I was never the favorite. And deep down, I knew it long before anyone said it out loud. Growing up, our house ran on unspoken rules. My brother Daniel could do no wrong. When he skipped chores, it was, he's tired from soccer. When he brought home a C in math, it was, he's probably just stressed. But when I got a B+, my mom would raise an eyebrow and ask, "What were you doing instead of studying?" I wasn't rebellious. I didn't talk back. I didn't get in trouble. But I also wasn't useful in the way they wanted me to be. I liked drawing dresses. I took apart thrift store clothes and stitched them back into something new. I loved colors, textures, movement. My dad once saw me sketching late at night and said without looking up from his phone, "You better pray your future spouse can afford to keep you, because this art thing won't." When I was 16, I used my babysitting money to buy a second-hand sewing machine. I made my first full dress from scratch for prom because I couldn't afford a designer one. I still remember stepping out of my room with shaky hands, heart pounding, hoping to hear something, anything from them. My mom barely glanced up. "Oh, is that what you're wearing?" Then she turned back to folding laundry. I learned early that approval wasn't coming, so I stopped asking for it. After high school, I didn't go to college like Daniel did. I took night classes in fashion construction while working retail during the day. I rented a one-room apartment the size of a closet and launched my Etsy shop from my kitchen table. Every month was a fight. Rent fabric costs shipping delays. But with every sale, I felt something I never got at home: validation. I wasn't making millions, but I was building something real, something mine, And yet whenever I told my parents about a small win like getting featured in a local magazine or collaborating with a small brand, they'd just nod politely and say, "That's nice. No celebration. No, we're proud of you." Not even a fake smile. Meanwhile, my brother got a job at a corporate firm straight out of school, and they threw a dinner party. Printed invitations, champagne, speeches. I wasn't even asked to help decorate, but I kept going. When I met the person I would eventually fall in love with, it was like the universe finally gave me something back. They saw me. Not just the version I polished for clients or smiled through at family dinners, but the messy, sleep-deprived, passionate version who cared too much and cried at Fashion Week documentaries. They supported my dreams with a kind of steadiness I didn't know people were capable of. They never tried to fix me or reshape me. They just stood with me. So when we got engaged, I wanted my family to see. Not just the ring, but the person I'd become. That's why I decided to plan the kind of wedding most people only dream about. Not to show off, but to prove maybe for the last time that I was worth showing up for. I spent a year planning everything. I worked double shifts. I put every extra dollar into a savings account labeled Amalfi. I sketched the venue layout, designed the invitations, sourced the custom fabrics for my dress, and even negotiated bulk deals for flights and lodging. I emailed my parents every update. I printed the itinerary. I made a personalized welcome package for each guest, complete with handwritten notes. I booked my family a luxury villa with a sea view. I sent them first-class tickets from New York to Naples. I covered everything. And still, I couldn't escape that small voice inside. What if they don't come? But I silenced it. I told myself no one would miss their own child's wedding. Not after this. I was wrong. 3 weeks before the ceremony, I got the message. We're heading to Kenya instead. It's a once-in-a-lifetime safari. We'll catch up after the trip. No apology. No hesitation. Just a casual brush-off like I was the inconvenience. That's when the years of subtle digs and quiet dismissals came rushing back. It wasn't just this moment. It was every moment. Every time they looked through me. Every time I clung to their attention like it was oxygen. Every time I shrank myself, hoping I'd finally be enough to keep their love. And now even with a picture-perfect wedding on the horizon, even after paying their way, I still wasn't enough. Not for them. But maybe that was the point. Maybe this wasn't about being chosen by them anymore. Maybe it was about finally choosing me. After the shock wore off, something inside me shifted. I stopped begging for their presence. I stopped waiting for their approval. And I started focusing on the people who actually showed up. My partner held me through the breakdown and gently said, "Let's make this wedding unforgettable for us, not for them." And that's when I realized I had spent years designing gowns to make other people feel beautiful. Maybe it was time I made one for myself, not to impress my family, but to remind me of who I really was. So I poured myself into the work. For 2 weeks straight, I sketched, cut, and stitched until my fingers were raw. The dress I made was unlike anything I'd ever created, layers of soft ivory silk with hand-embroidered stars across the bodice, inspired by the Amalfi night sky. It shimmered not because it wanted to be seen, but because it was unapologetically me. My partner took care of the venue details, while I redesigned the entire guest experience. We replaced the empty family rooms with childhood friends, kind mentors, and even a few clients who had supported my shop from the very beginning. One of them, a well-known wedding photographer with over 1 million followers, offered to shoot our wedding free of charge just because she loved our story. And then came the real surprise. A week before the ceremony, my inbox pinged with a message from a buyer in Milan. She had discovered my dress designs through a repost on Instagram and wanted to feature my work in her boutique window during Milan Fashion Week. I almost thought it was spam until I looked her up. Lucia Serrano, owner of Atelier Serafina, one of the most exclusive fashion houses in Europe. She asked for a Zoom call that same day. I wore my best blazer and tried not to sweat through it. 10 minutes into the call, she smiled and said, "You don't need a fashion degree to have vision. You've got the kind of raw talent people spend decades chasing." She ordered 12 custom gowns, paid up front, and invited me to attend the Milan showcase as a featured guest designer. 12. In that one moment, everything I had struggled for every night, I cried over unpaid orders every time I doubted myself, suddenly crystallized into something real. I wanted to scream with joy. Instead, I just smiled, whispered thank you, and closed my laptop in stunned silence. And that's when it happened. Not even 3 hours later, I got a text from my mother. "Saw someone repost one of your dresses. Are you going to Milan? Daniel's friend from college is a designer there. No congratulations. No apology for missing the wedding. Just a casual mention, like I was some acquaintance at a networking event." I didn't reply. But it didn't end there. 3 days before the wedding, my dad emailed me directly, something he hadn't done in over a year. "Heard from Aunt Rachel that your brand's taking off. Would love to chat after the honeymoon. Maybe even invest." Invest? This man who once called my work a hobby wanted to be part of my success now. It was almost funny. Almost. But what really hit me wasn't the irony. It was the timing. They didn't care about the wedding. They didn't care about me rebuilding everything after they bailed. They cared that other people finally saw my worth. They only wanted in when it was convenient, when it made them look good. But here's the thing, I no longer needed their validation. Not for my career, not for my relationship, and definitely not for the life I was building. So I politely declined the investment with a simple message. "Appreciate the offer, but I've got everything I need. Hope you enjoyed, Kenya." The silence that followed was louder than any of their old criticisms. And it felt amazing. The day of the wedding arrived, and I stood barefoot on the villa balcony, dress flowing in the ocean breeze, watching the sun spill gold over the water. There was no tension, no fear, just love. My partner looked at me and whispered, "This is how it was always meant to be," and I believed it. We danced under string lights with people who laughed, cried, and celebrated with us, not just for appearances. The energy was electric. The music, the food, the emotion, it all felt alive in a way I never thought possible. At one point, the photographer turned to me and said, "I've shot celebrity weddings that didn't feel half this real. You're going to change this industry." And in that moment, I didn't think about my parents at all. I thought about that scared, invisible kid who used to cry in their bedroom after being dismissed again and again. And I wanted to tell them, you made it. You didn't need their spotlight. You became your own. But life wasn't quite done with the drama. Because a month later, when I landed in Milan for Fashion Week, guess who else was in attendance, Daniel? Not as a designer. Not as a guest of honor, but as the +1 of his college buddy, the one my mom mentioned. He saw me across the room wearing my custom gown, being ushered into a press interview by Lucia herself. His jaw dropped. We locked eyes for a second. He gave me a half nod, and I smiled. Not because I wanted to rub it in, but because, for once, he was the one standing in the corner watching me shine. You'd think by now I'd stop hoping. Stop thinking maybe, just maybe, my family would show up differently. But hope is a stubborn thing. When Lucia invited me to a private gala dinner before Fashion Week, a room filled with editors, stylists, and international buyers, I only told one soul from my family. My older cousin, Rachel. Rachel had always been the least judgmental. She used to sneak me snacks during holidays, when my mom made me skip dessert for not working hard enough on my appearance. She sent me a graduation card once, when no one else in the family did. So when she messaged me after seeing my dress in Vogue Italia's online preview and said, "Proud of you," I hesitated but replied. I told her I'd be in Milan, that I'd be part of something huge, that I'd finally made it. Her response was quick. "That's amazing. Maybe we'll bump into each other. Mom and I are planning to stop by Milan for a few days." That felt off, because the timing was too convenient. I asked if she was going to Fashion Week, and she brushed it off. "Just a little girl's trip. We won't interfere." Something in me tightened, but I tried to let it go. I shouldn't have. The night of the gala, I arrived in a satin emerald dress I had handmade for the event, fitted sharp sculptural. My partner was next to me, beaming with pride. The venue was like a scene out of a dream, flickering chandeliers, marble pillars, and strings of violins echoing through 100 conversations. People from magazines approached. Buyers asked for samples. I was finally being seen, truly seen, for what I had built, not who I was born to please. And then I saw her, Rachel, not just attending, presenting, standing beside my mother, holding a microphone. I froze. I couldn't process what I was looking at. My mom in a designer gown she absolutely couldn't afford on her own, smiling like she belonged. Rachel introduced her as a longtime fashion sponsor and emerging boutique co-founder from the U.S., what the room applauded. They talked about supporting young, independent designers from within the family. Family. I stood there, mouth slightly open, hands trembling. My mother looked directly at me across the hall and winked. She knew. She knew I would be there. She didn't just tag along. She planned this. Rachel wasn't the kind cousin, after all. She was the entry ticket. And my mother, who once told me I'd embarrass the family if I kept sewing instead of getting a real job, was now here claiming credit for my success. A few guests turned to me confused. "Wait, you're the daughter she mentioned, right? The one she helped fund early on." Helped fund. They thought she had backed me, encouraged me, believed in me. I could feel the tears pushing at the back of my throat, but I wasn't going to cry. Not here. Not tonight. I walked out of the ballroom and into a hallway lit by soft amber sconces. My partner followed, grabbing my hand. "Breathe," they said. "Just breathe." But how do you breathe when someone just rewrote your entire story, and people believe it? I had spent years clawing my way to this moment, and now the people who had disowned me, shamed me, rejected me, were here wearing borrowed power and false pride. I sat on a bench trying to steady myself, and then my phone buzzed. A DM on Instagram from a fashion intern who had been at the gala. "So sweet how your mom got you started. She's such a queen." I teared up when she talked about raising a designer, with her bare hands. "You're lucky." Lucky. I could have screamed. Instead, I replied she didn't raise a designer. She raised her voice when I begged for help, and gave me silence instead. I hit send. No filter. No diplomacy. And then I did something bolder. I posted a story, just a photo of my original dress sketches. A caption underneath: "No mentors. No handouts. No family fund. Just my hands and a hunger to prove I mattered." It went viral in hours. The next morning, Lucia herself approached me. She'd seen the clip of my mom's speech. "You didn't tell me you came from a fashion family," she said carefully, and I replied without flinching, because I didn't. "She's not part of my journey. She's trying to rewrite it." Lucia nodded. "We'll make sure the record's set straight." That afternoon, Vogue Italia published a follow-up. They asked for a deeper interview. This time I told them everything. The silence from my family was instant. Rachel unfollowed me. My mom sent a 2-line email. "You're ungrateful. We were trying to support you in our way. You ruined everything." No apology, just more guilt. But here's the truth. They didn't ruin anything. They exposed everything. They showed the world who they really were. And in doing so, they gave me exactly what I needed: closure. Because that night, as I stood on stage in Milan, the crowd rose in a standing ovation. Not for a legacy, not for a family name, but for me. And for the first time in my life, I didn't need anyone in the crowd to validate it. I knew. I finally knew I belonged. The morning after the gala felt strangely quiet. The buzz online hadn't stopped, but in my hotel suite everything was still. My dress that hung on a rack, still pristine. My inbox overflowed with messages from journalists, designers, and even distant classmates, but I didn't open any of them. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to pause. I sat by the window overlooking the gray skyline of Milan and let the silence sit with me. No tears, no anger, just clarity. For so long I had chased applause from the one place that refused to give it: my family. I'd sacrificed time, sanity, and self-worth thinking that if I just worked harder, shined brighter, maybe one day they'd see me. But they had seen me. They just didn't want me. They wanted control. The lies at the gala weren't accidental. They were deliberate. My mother and Rachel weren't confused. They were opportunistic. And for the first time, I saw it for what it was. Not my failure. Theirs. They chose not to support me when it mattered. They chose silence when I needed their voice. They chose image over truth. And now I had a choice too. As I sat there, my partner brought over a cappuccino and sat across from me. No words at first. Just the kind of quiet you share with someone who knows your storm. Then they said, "You don't owe them your light. They dimmed it for too long. Let it shine where it's safe." That sentence stuck with me. I didn't owe them anything. Not an explanation. Not an invitation. Not a seat at my table. The next day, I met with Lucia again. She offered me the chance to headline an upcoming show in New York, the kind of solo presentation that designers dream about for years. But I hesitated, not because I didn't want it, but because for once I wanted to do it on my terms. So, I made a decision. I would accept the offer, but reframe the show completely. No red carpet. No guest list full of celebrities or legacy designers. Instead, I curated a night called The Chosen Ones. Every person walking that runway would be a first-gen creative, a self-funded artist, or someone who had been told, "You'll never make it." No nepotism, no false narratives, no borrowed prestige, just raw earned brilliance. And in that moment, something inside me healed. I didn't need to scream for recognition anymore. I could build a stage and give it to others like me. When my mother found out, probably through someone else, she sent one last message. "We could have been part of this with you. You chose to push us away." I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, "I didn't push you away. I stopped shrinking to fit the space you gave me. I hit send, blocked the number, closed that door permanently. Because the truth is, sometimes healing isn't about waiting for people to change. It's about choosing yourself when they won't." And that's exactly what I did. When the Chosen One's runway night arrived, the energy was electric. No one expected it to be this bold, this unapologetic. The press was confused at first. No red carpet, no familiar names on the guest list. But as the lights dimmed and the first model stepped onto the runway, wearing a raw, breathtaking design with the words "I belong without permission" stitched into the hem, the crowd went silent, then erupted. These weren't models plucked from agencies. They were artists, activists, survivors, people who had never been given a platform until now. Each look told a story. Each step reclaimed space. By the finale, the audience was on their feet. And right there, standing near the back, I noticed Rachel. She looked stunned. Her new designer line had launched the same week, complete with glossy magazine spreads and a full PR campaign. But no one was talking about it. All eyes were here, on this. She walked out before the final applause. I didn't chase her. A day later, an email from her brand's manager leaked cancellation notices, pulled contracts, whispers of lack of originality. Turns out when you build your empire on someone else's light, it doesn't last long. And as for my mother, she remained silent. No congratulations, no apology. But I was done waiting for either. Because that night, for the first time, I wasn't a supporting character in someone else's narrative. I was the story. 6 months later, I moved into a modest studio in Brooklyn. Sunlight cracked concrete floors, and shelves overflowing with fabric. No press, no pressure, just passion. I'd traded recognition for freedom, and honestly, I'd never felt more alive. The people in my life now weren't there for legacy or status. They were present, chosen, real. I still got occasional messages from distant relatives trying to reconnect after seeing my name in Vogue. I didn't respond. I wasn't angry, I was just at peace. I didn't need revenge. I needed clarity, and I got it. I learned that not everyone deserves access to your growth, that some doors have to stay closed, not out of bitterness, but out of boundaries. I learned that family isn't who you're born to, it's who shows up, who sees you, who stays. And I learned that healing doesn't always look like reconciliation. Sometimes healing is just choosing yourself loudly. So if you've ever felt unseen, unloved, uninvited, let this be your reminder. You don't have to earn what you already deserve. Your worth isn't up for negotiation. And your story, it's not over. It's just getting started.